Ladies and gentlemen, there's a moment in every story, after the silence, after the distance, after the unanswered questions, where we start to wonder if he'll ever come back. It's the quiet after the chaos. The stillness that's louder than the arguments or the goodbyes, and in that moment we tend to look outward. We wait for a shift in him, a change in his heart, a sudden realization that brings him back to us. But what if I told you that long before he comes back, something else happens first, and it doesn't happen in him. It happens in you. Tonight, we're going to talk about the moment before he returns, the part of the story no one talks about, the invisible transformation that takes place inside you, and why that shift changes everything. When you're in the thick of it, checking your phone every few minutes, replaying every conversation, every smile, every text, it feels impossible to imagine a reality where he's not constantly on your mind. You wake up with that sinking feeling. You go to bed hoping for some kind of sign that he still cares, still thinks about you, still wants you, and yet that sign never comes when you're actively searching for it. But something strange happens when you finally get tired, not physically tired, emotionally tired, when you grow weary of waiting for a message that never arrives, of pouring your energy into a version of someone who's no longer here. That's when the internal shift begins. It's not a dramatic moment, it's subtle, quiet. Sometimes it comes after crying one too many times. Other times it sneaks in after a day where you finally laughed without thinking of him. That's when you start to let go, not because you stop caring, but because holding on starts to hurt more than releasing ever could. Letting go emotionally doesn't mean you erase him or forget what you had. It means you stop centering your entire emotional world around his absence. You start reclaiming pieces of yourself that were put on hold for the possibility of his return. You begin focusing on your own joy, not because you're trying to make him jealous or win the breakup, but because you simply can't live in the waiting room anymore. You no longer post to get his attention. You no longer read into the likes or the silence. You stop playing detective. You stop creating stories in your mind about why he hasn't reached out. And with each day that passes, your focus returns to your own life, your own healing, your own goals, your own peace. You begin to realize that the most important person who needed your attention was always you. And while you're doing that, while you're pouring love back into yourself instead of draining it towards someone who's not even present, something powerful begins to shift on his side too, because even though he might not say it, he feels the change. People are intuitive, especially when they're used to having access to your emotions. When your energy stops chasing him, even energetically, he notices, maybe not immediately, but eventually he begins to wonder. Not because he's necessarily ready to commit or make things right, but because the familiarity of your emotional availability is no longer there, and that unfamiliar silence is jarring. He might start checking your profiles. He might start asking mutual friends how you're doing. He might even send a casual message, "Hey, just thinking about you," as if nothing happened, but you'll know what changed. You'll know that he didn't come back because of anything you said or did. He came back because you stopped. When you let go emotionally, it creates space for clarity, both for you and for him. He can finally feel the weight of your absence because you're no longer filling the silence. And you can finally see him for who he truly is, not through the lens of longing, but through the clarity of distance. Emotional detachment isn't coldness. It's not about becoming numb. It's about choosing your peace over obsession, your future over fantasy. It's when you stop reaching, stop convincing, stop bending yourself to fit into a story that keeps breaking you. It's when you finally understand that love isn't about holding on tighter, it's about knowing when to let go with grace. And the irony of it all, that's the very moment he often returns, the moment he feels the energy is no longer circling around him, the moment he realizes he no longer has a free pass to your heart, but by then something in you has already shifted. You're no longer the person who needed his return to feel whole. You've grown, you've healed, you've let go, not out of bitterness, but out of love for yourself, and that's when everything changes. When a relationship ends or someone you care about pulls away, it's natural to look outward for answers. You replay everything he said, everything he did, hoping for some kind of sign that he regrets leaving. You wait for a message, a moment of clarity, a grand gesture that tells you he's had a change of heart. But the truth is, that shift you're hoping for doesn't begin with him. It begins in you. We grow up with the idea that love stories are revived when the other person has a revelation. That they wake up one day and suddenly realize how much they miss you, how wrong they were, how deeply they still care. And sometimes that does happen. But the part we rarely acknowledge is that the energy that triggers that realization doesn't start in their world, it starts in yours. In the beginning, you might be stuck in a loop. Your emotions are tangled in memories. You're reacting to his silence, to his absence, to the space he left behind. You feel like you're living your life with one foot still planted in that relationship, in that version of yourself who was waiting to be chosen again. And because of that, every move you make, every choice, even unconsciously, is still about him. The way you dress, the way you post, the way you talk to others, it's all being filtered through the lens of his potential return. But then something changes. Slowly, maybe even painfully, you begin to reclaim your narrative. Not out of spite or anger, but because you simply can't live in limbo anymore. You wake up and decide, even just for today, to think of something else, to do something different, to redirect the energy you were giving away into something that belongs to you again. It's not a loud or dramatic moment, it's quiet. Maybe it's the first time you don't feel the urge to stalk his profile. Maybe it's the first time you smile without forcing it. Maybe it's just a single breath where you feel a little lighter, a little freer. That's the beginning of the shift, and as it grows, you change. Your presence becomes different. You're not performing anymore. You're not waiting. You're not living your life in anticipation of a message, a return, an apology. You're just living, and that energy is magnetic. Not because you're trying to attract him back, but because you're finally attracting yourself back. People feel that kind of change. It's unspoken, but powerful. When someone has been the center of your emotional world for a long time, they feel it when they're no longer there. It creates a void they didn't expect, because they were used to your energy reaching toward them, your attention, your longing, your silent hope. And suddenly, all of that is gone, reclaimed, no longer on the shelf waiting for them to pick up. And what often triggers their confusion, their curiosity, even their return, is not that they changed, it's that you did. It's the shift in your energy, it's the strength in your silence, it's the way you no longer respond the same, the way your eyes don't search for theirs in the room, the way your words don't carry hidden questions. That's what they notice, that's what makes them look twice, because the version of you that once needed their attention has evolved. You're no longer auditioning for their affection, you're no longer trying to prove your worth. You've done the work internally, facing the pain, accepting the reality, redefining who you are outside of that relationship, and now your peace speaks louder than any plea ever could. It's easy to think that change needs to come from them, that their transformation is what heals everything, but it's your transformation that truly sets the tone. The moment you shift your focus inward, the entire dynamic changes. You stop chasing and start receiving. You stop convincing and start choosing, and in the end, whether he comes back or not becomes less important, because the real shift was never about him, it was always about you. There's a kind of noise we create in people's lives without even realizing it. It's not loud in the traditional sense, it's not shouting, pleading, or demanding. It's the kind of noise that comes from being consistently available, from being emotionally invested, from always showing up whether or not they ask for it. It's the good morning texts, the check-ins, the likes on their stories, the silent energy of waiting for them to notice you. It's your presence, unspoken but always there, and when someone is used to that attention, they stop noticing it. It becomes background noise, comforting but forgettable, but the moment you take it away, genuinely, not in a manipulative or performative way, something shifts. They feel the absence of what they never fully appreciated when it was freely given. And suddenly, your silence becomes the loudest thing in the room. We often think that attention is power, that if we just stay close enough, visible enough, generous enough with our energy, we'll eventually be seen, chosen, remembered. But true influence, true gravity, often comes from what's no longer there, because people don't just feel the presence of love, they feel the loss of it even more. Your attention was never just about texts or time. It was about emotional investment. You gave parts of your mind, your energy, your heart, quietly and consistently. Maybe you didn't even realize how much space you were giving him in your day, but he noticed on some level. He noticed in the way people notice warmth without ever thanking the sun, and the truth is, people only notice what the sun meant when the sky suddenly turns cold. When you pull that energy back, it's not about punishing or proving a point. It's about reclaiming yourself. It's about recognizing that your energy is a gift and that constantly giving it to someone who takes it for granted leaves you empty. You stop checking in, not out of anger, but because you've finally checked in with yourself. You stop showing up not to make him miss you, but because you're showing up for your own healing instead. That's when the silence gets loud. He scrolls through his phone and realizes your name hasn't popped up. He posts something and wonders why you didn't react. He tells a joke and looks around, but you're not there to laugh. It's subtle. At first, he may not even be fully aware of what's missing, but then, over time, that space you once filled becomes undeniably empty. It's not that he suddenly changed. It's not that he grew more mature overnight. It's that the rhythm he was used to, the background comfort of your emotional presence, is gone. The warmth he thought would always be available now feels like a memory instead of a guarantee. And in that emptiness, he begins to search, not just for you, but for the feeling you used to provide, the emotional safety, the softness, the belief that someone out there truly cared. He might not even know how to articulate it. He might just feel uneasy, uncertain, a bit hollow, but the source of that feeling is your absence, and it speaks louder than all the attention you gave when he wasn't listening. There's power in not filling a space that someone never acknowledged. There's a quiet strength in knowing that your presence was never meant to be background noise. When you stop trying to be remembered and start living as if you already are whole, you shift the energy entirely. You go from someone who waits to someone who walks forward, from someone who gives endlessly to someone who chooses selectively. He may come back, confused by the echo your silence left behind. He may reach out, unsure why your absence stings more than your presence ever seemed to. But by then you will have learned something he didn't. That attention isn't what makes you valuable. That silence, when chosen from a place of self-respect, carries a message no words ever could, and that message is this: your love is not something to be ignored until it's gone. It is something to be cherished while it's here, and once it's gone, its silence will speak volumes. So if you're sitting in the silence right now, wondering if he'll come back, wondering if he'll remember what you meant to him, I want you to know this: you don't have to chase closure. You don't have to wait for someone else to wake up to your worth, because the most powerful shift, the one that changes the story, is the one that happens in you. When you stop reaching for someone who isn't reaching back, when you stop shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's indecision, that's when your silence begins to speak. That's when your presence returns to where it's always belonged, with you, and maybe, just maybe, he'll come back. But the real question is, will the person you've become still want him? Thank you.